December 26th, 1900. A date forever etched into the dark history of the North Atlantic. On that day, the relief ship Hesperus arrived at the lonely rock of Eilean Mòr, the largest of the Flannan Isles. They were here for a standard procedure, to relieve one of the 4 lighthouse keepers as part of a continuous rotation. The air was still, and the surrounding ocean was unusually calm, yet a profound, unnatural silence hung over the entire island. Relief keeper Joseph Mòr, preparing for his shift, noted with immediate dread that the lighthouse's signal flag was missing. Even more unsettling, the sturdy iron landing gate, usually locked and bolted against the sea, stood wide open. No welcoming party descended the steps. Mòr, a man familiar with the harsh realities of sea service, was the first to land. He climbed the winding steps, shouting names into the wind. Silence answered. The main door to the living quarters was locked, but Mòr had the key. He stepped inside, expecting to find the standard daily operations of the keep. Instead, he found a scene that defied all experience. The main living room was neat. The beds were made, the lamps cleaned and polished. The clock on the mantelpiece, its gentle tick-tock usually the heart of the home, was dead still. It had stopped at exactly 1:45. Panic, cold and sharp, seized Joseph Mòr. He was a strong man, accustomed to being the one doing the rescuing, not finding this. He ran through the rest of the facility. He checked the watch room. He checked the lantern room, the pinnacle of the light. All was perfectly orderly. The main lamps were cleaned, trimmed, and refilled, ready to be lit that very evening. This was the work of men who anticipated normal duty. But the men themselves, head keeper James Ducat, second assistant Thomas Marshall, and occasional keeper Donald MacArthur, were completely gone. No bodies, no blood, no signs of a struggle, just a deep, terrifying absence. Ducat, Marshall, and MacArthur had simply vanished into thin air. Stunned by his discovery, Mòr sent a desperate telegram back to the shore station, stating that a dreadful accident had happened at the Flannan, and the 3 keepers had disappeared from the island. He noted that the stopped clock and other signs indicated the accident must have happened about a week prior, speculating that the poor fellows must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned while trying to secure some equipment. But Mòr's simple drowning theory, while comforting in its basic mortality, would soon be shattered by a horrifying piece of physical evidence that transformed a tragic accident into an impossible mystery. An immediate and thorough investigation was launched. Detectives scrutinized every single inch of the keep. They found the main set of outdoor protective gear, the heavy oilskins, the boots, the hats, left behind in their proper places. Only one set was missing, suggesting only one man had left the building. Yet all 3 were gone. Why would 2 experienced keepers, adhering to the golden rule of sea safety that at least 2 men must always remain inside the light, follow a 3rd man outside during a furious gale completely unprotected? And how could they vanish so completely? Then, the lead investigator, Robert Muirhead, opened the keeper's daily logbook. This wasn't just any journal. This was the official record of the keepers' lives. The last formal entries were made standardly, noting that the lighthouse equipment was in perfect working order. But it was the final, informal entry, jotted down in pencil on December 15th, that froze Muirhead's blood. The handwriting was identified as second assistant Thomas Marshall's. Marshall, usually a stoic, quiet man, had written words of profound and unfamiliar dread. The final log entry read, "A gale has raged for 3 days. Nothing like it seen before. Ducat is very quiet. MacArthur is crying." MacArthur was crying. Donald MacArthur was a tough-as-nails seafaring veteran, famous for his resilience and his complete lack of fear. Why would a fearless man be reduced to tears of absolute despair by a storm? And why was the usually calm Ducat described as ominously quiet? The implication in the log was undeniable. The men were paralyzed by a psychic terror. The storm itself seemed malevolent, a presence that was breaking them from the inside out. Further compounding the mystery was the fact that the storm described in the log, a gale of such unprecedented fury, had been recorded nowhere else along the coast. Meteorological data showed no gale that extreme had occurred around Eilean Mòr on the 15th of December. Shore observations from the main island of Lewis reported only standard gale-force winds that were completely typical for December, not an unprecedented apocalypse. Was the gale a complete fabrication? Was the terror in the log the result of a madness spreading through the keep? Normal operations of the human mind break down in extreme isolation. And on the Flannan Isles, a mile of cold Atlantic separated the keepers from reality. A theory emerged that headkeeper James Ducat, a strict disciplinarian, had cracked under the stress. Perhaps a standard argument had turned lethal, and MacArthur's crying was the symptom of witnessing an unthinkable act of collective dementia. This theory was horrifying, but it didn't account for one final devastating discovery that made theories of madness look like children's fables. After the initial search, Mòr and the investigation team descended the steps to the western landing, used during severe storms when the eastern platform was too dangerous. The view was desolate, but the platform itself was shattered. A massive iron railway track, part of the tramway used to haul provisions up the cliff, had been ripped from its concrete foundation and twisted into a bizarre corkscrew. The sturdy iron crane, 100 feet above the water, had been bent and folded like paper. This wasn't standard damage. This was the work of an unprecedented sea monster. A giant rogue wave, born of the ocean's fury, had assaulted the cliff face with the force of heavy artillery, destroying the landing and sweeping away any men caught upon it. The final, awful clue was the timing. The clock had stopped at 1:45, which coincided with the final log entry and the end of all communication from the island. The tragedy was incredibly swift. The storm, the madness, the tears. They were the final moments of a haunted mind facing an untamed power of nature. We can only imagine Donald MacArthur crying as the sea prepared its final blow. The Flannan Isles mystery remains the ultimate testament to human limitations when isolated and facing the raw, untamed power of nature. If you enjoyed this documentary, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Leave a comment down below. Do you believe this tragedy was caused entirely by a rogue wave, or was it a collective dementia born of psychic terror? Stay tuned. The ice always holds the truth, if you know where to dig. See you in the next episode of Frozen Secrets.